Good.
Hello and welcome to Feel Good Friday, your weekly dose of positivity right here on the Forever Ready Facebook and YouTube channels. Notice a change of scenery? Today we are live from our Chicago offices because we have a big event coming up, and I'm going to tell you more about that at the end of this show. But first, I want to start with an event that Brody and I covered last week for High Ground News. Last Friday was Juneteenth. If you don't know what that is, go back and watch the broadcast. It's a very important day in history. It's essentially our second Independence Day, and something that many of us didn't necessarily learn about in school. In Memphis, there is a ton of history around that. And we had the honor of going to Douglas Park last Saturday. Douglas Park is a piece of land that was given to freed slaves in Memphis. Yes, that is what we're talking about. That's the kind of history we have in the city. And I've been told if you dig 3 feet down, you'll find cotton. So the land has been a part of the Black community in Memphis for a long time, and for years they've been celebrating Juneteenth.
Douglas is one of the oldest established parks in North Memphis. This land here was all slave land. If you dig about 2 feet in the ground, you will hit cotton roots all over this park. And it was part of a 40-acre lot that was given to a freed slave. And so out of that came Douglas Park and the surrounding community.
What we're doing here today is we're supporting Juneteenth Douglas, the time is now Douglas, and celebrating Juneteenth in a different way as a result of the pandemic.
So we're giving away free veggie boxes. We're also giving away free meals from several food trucks, and we're giving away masks and hand sanitizer. So there's always work to be done. There's always hearts willing to do that work. And for people who can't even get here, we've got people dispersed out in the community all the way out to South Memphis. When we're not in a pandemic, typically we're having a 3-day music festival, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, always on Father's Day weekend, because that Friday is always, the Friday before is always Juneteenth, although it's not always June 19th. So normally Saturday here, we would be doing the horseback riding in the mornings, the kiddie rides, the bouncers, the water slides. The walkway would be filled with vendors. The park would be filled with people. That's our main goal for Juneteenth, is to educate our people and everyone else about our history. This is our Independence Day. July 4th, 1776, we were still enslaved. We were still enslaved until 1846. When you've been oppressed and disenfranchised so long, Black people, we're jovial. We're not gonna lie down and wallow in it. We're gonna make the best of it. And so when we have the opportunity to step up and do better, we take it. But what we need to understand is that we have to reach back, because so many of us don't have that step up. Put a spotlight on that. It's not right. My mother, my grandmother, her grandmother, and her grandmother all came out of this neighborhood. Where else would I go?
The perceptions of what goes on in our neighborhood, because crime is often the only story that's told. And yes, you know, places that are dealing with extreme rates of poverty, joblessness, homelessness are gonna experience crime because that's the result of that. But there's more than that. There's more to those stories. There's more to these communities. There's more to the people here. So it's like, what better way to celebrate Juneteenth and Father's Day and bringing folks home from jail than Douglas Park Juneteenth festivals?
This is how you love your neighbor. It's just by reaching across the aisle, reaching it out the table. I might have a penny, you got a penny, but guess what? 2 pennies, we can feed somebody. Love conquers hate. Violence begets violence. Only love conquers hate. We have to get back to love if we're gonna make it as a human race.
Never hurts to learn a little bit of history, right? I didn't know that, and I've lived in Memphis for almost 8 years. It's so cool to see the history. Thank you so much to the folks who organized that event for letting us come and capture that and tell the story. And special thanks to High Ground News for that wonderful partnership where we get to focus on neighborhoods like North Memphis and Douglas Park. So that was a really fun piece to put together. This next piece is something a little bit different. You know, during the quarantine, we talked a lot about in the past doing things that we love, getting back to creating and telling stories about the world around us, sometimes the mundane world. So Brody Kuhar, our creative director, went out on a photo walk a few weeks ago, and he has a tendency, I'm gonna call him out on this, he has a tendency to go take a bunch of photos and then either not share them with the world or share them months from now. And so I said, hey Brody, I'd love to see the photos you took on your walk last weekend. And he put together a collage of mundane photos that I think he made look very exciting. So let's take a look. Thank you, Brody, for showing us the mundane can also be beautiful. Speaking of beautiful, it's been a while since you've seen my cute little son. He turned 2 a few weeks ago, and we've been spending a lot of time during the quarantine together. In fact, more than 100 days straight together, which has forced us to get to know our home a little bit more and find ways to go outside and be together as a family. So a few weeks ago, we went on a hike in Shelby Forest, that's just north-ish of Memphis, and Max hiked for a whole mile, all like without asking to be picked up or anything. It was amazing. Of course, his mom was there with the camera, and I put together this film that at first was supposed to look like Max was traveling through the trail with no adult supervision, and then I decided maybe I should add Scott and I in there a couple times so it didn't look like we were abandoning our child. Nonetheless, here's a cute little piece of Max in Memphis.
That's really cool.
I'm caught in this moment. Hold on, don't let it slip away. Windows wide open. Clear skies, no chance of rain. And I can't imagine wanting more. It's something that I can't ignore. It's everything I'm looking for right now. I feel so alive. let's take a drive out to the beach. This ukulele needs to be out by the sea, and I can't imagine wanting more. It's something that I can't ignore. It's everything I'm looking for right now. I feel so alive. Never felt so right. Feel so alive. I feel so alive.
What do you want to do one more time?
Don't be far.
Don't fall.
Don't fall.
Can't imagine wanting more. It's something that I can't ignore. It's everything I'm looking for right now.
I tell ya, that kid loves to hike. And if you haven't made it to Shelby Forest, confession, that was my first time. I highly, highly recommend it. You can socially distance while hiking the trails, and we even packed a lunch and had a picnic. So it was a really fun family activity, and I can't wait to do it again. At the top of the show, I told you, hey, look at the surroundings. We're in a new spot. We're in our Chicago location this week. That's because Monday, June 29th at 7 p.m., we are making history for a nonprofit here in Chicago. The Center for Enriched Living, of course, like many nonprofits, has transferred one of their biggest fundraisers into a virtual fundraiser that will be live on Monday night. It's their virtual chef's night, rather. And that traditionally is a large event with some of the best chefs in Chicago and, of course, some really great cocktails. And this year they couldn't do that because of CDC regulations and COVID numbers, etc. All the challenges we're currently facing. So we are so excited to help them with this online virtual fundraiser. It will be a live event, much like our Feel Good Friday is right here. So I'm going to put a link below after this broadcast so you can attend as well. It's a great way to raise funds and awareness about the work they're doing here in Chicago, and a really fun way to get to know some chefs, get a cocktail idea, an appetizer idea, have a little fun at home, maybe get dressed up for the event. I know we'll have a blast just getting to broadcast that for the first time and help them make history in 2020. So be sure to tune into that on Monday night. We will share it on our Facebook page as well. But it goes live at 7 p.m. We have a guest host, and we're going to hear some wonderful stories of the impact of the CEL right here in Chicagoland. That does it for this week of Feel Good Friday. Thanks so much for tuning in. I just want to do one point of order note. Next week, Friday, July 3rd, we will not be live. That is because Forever Ready is celebrating the holiday for the 4th of July. So we'll see you again in 2 weeks, and we've already got a couple of really great stories to spread your weekly dose of positivity. Have a great holiday.